All right. Well, hello, chemistry teachers. This is the first video in a series in our training over using the curriculum and all the resources found within it. And we're going to start off with the scope and sequence, which you're seeing on the screen right now. Hopefully you guys can see my screen. There we are. I don't know if you guys were seeing it. I wasn't seeing it. Okay. So, the scope and sequence, the purpose of the scope and sequence is not really your day-to-day or weekly planning, but more of the big picture. You can kind of see what does my year, semester, each quarter look like. It also puts a few resources right up front, just so you have them easily available once you get started. So we'll kind of go through this from top to bottom, and I'll kind of walk you through what each part is. First off, right at the top is your link to the curriculum map. We're going to dig into that in more detail in the next video, but that's how you can access each and one of those as you go throughout the year. Then you got your pacing listed out here. Now this is just kind of like a suggested pacing based off an approximation of how much time it takes for each chapter, unit, whatever it is. With chemistry, there might be some minor adjustments made after this video towards what the pacing looks like. As you can tell, within the chemistry curriculum, there are a lot of little, what they call modules, a lot of them. And so what we want to do as a chemistry team is collaborate what parts do we want to keep and what do we want to take out to maybe streamline this a bit more. So that might look a little bit different based off when you're viewing, but this is essentially the pacing and the modules that you have listed in front of you. For each module, those come with focus questions, so you can see those listed there. Those are coming from the actual resource, and as I'll mention, all of these, like focus questions, proficiency scales, standards, these can all be found in the curriculum map as well. So it's not like you always have to come back here to get those. They'll be in your curriculum map as well, where they need to be. So you'll see them a bit later on. Next up, we have the proficiency scales. These were created actually before I took the role, kind of a push to try to move towards more of a standards-based grading. Some teachers have found these useful for their student objective terminology, kind of breaking down the standards a bit. So maybe you might find something useful within these, but I haven't touched them since taking over. I've just left them embedded within the curriculum for teachers to use. They may not be entirely accurate as to exactly where they line up on the curriculum anymore, but as best as I could, I tried to line them up. Next up, you have your standards. Chemistry doesn't have like a whole ton of standards because most of them fall under the physical science and just a small segment of those. Our resource does kind of attach a lot of the physical science standards to chemistry. So I just tried to pick out some of the key ones and not all the ones that were sort of talked about, but those can be listed out here. And if you need a further breakdown, if you click on these, it takes you to the item specification, so you can really dig into the standards there. As we go down, the resource has a guiding phenomenon question for each module. Some of them don't really make sense because it's talking about why is the volcano spewing bright blue flames. There's a picture of that in the book and online that goes along with that question. So that makes a bit more sense in context when you're going through it, because then there'll be a picture that you're basing it off of. But the idea is each module, you start off with the guiding phenomenon question. Students really don't understand until they've learned some content within that module, and then they have the knowledge to be able to go back and answer that question based off of what they learned. Lastly, you have the assessments, and these are where you can see what is being tested on from the district perspective. My goal is that these don't change a whole lot year to year. So unless we make a few minor adjustments in the scope and sequence this year, these will be the same. And so you can kind of see what's the topics being asked about on the district test, so that I can kind of plan out what's important. I try not to grab very many questions from the end of the unit, just so that it's fair for those who are struggling through the pacing. So most of the questions are going to fall within these modules, maybe one or two from the last module in each unit or quarter. Lastly, something that I've included that's kind of new, K through 8, the state actually provided these new testlets, basically like miniaturized versions of the map, or in the high school version, EOC, so students can start practicing what that looks like. And so I like that idea, so I took the physical science test practice test that they had, which was a very long test, tons of questions, and I broke that up into little chunks. And so now these are, you have for each quarter a little practice test that students can do. And since physical science covers chemistry, these are chemistry-based questions from their bigger test. So you can see I'm just skipping around questions, finding just the ones that pertain to what students would be learning in that unit. So you can give this at the end as a way for students to see how would you be doing on a district assessment. And they're starting to see that in their sophomore year and not just waiting until their junior year. And then you got your answer key if you click on this right here. So that might be really useful for getting students practicing on test-like environment and test-like questions. So feel free to utilize those as you want. And then as I scroll on down to page 2, that's quarter 3, quarter 4, but it's the same stuff. All right, so that's basically the scope and sequence. Remember, this is for your long-term planning, big picture. You're not going to live in this document. In the next video, I'm going to show you the curriculum landing page, which is here, and then the video after that will do the actual scope and pacing guide, which is where you see all the resources come together. So I'll see you guys in the next video for that. Bye.